Hello there, my dear time travelers. Zuzu here, your sleepy monkey friend with a cozy red coat and a big curiosity for the past. Welcome back to Zuzu's Time Travel, the channel where we drift quietly through history, one peaceful moment at a time. Tonight, or maybe it's morning where you are, we're floating back. Back through mist and moss and the sound of turning wheels. We've landed by a sleepy millstream in the heart of the countryside. The air is cool. The day is just beginning. Today's story is called A Day in the Life of a Medieval Miller. We're not looking at kings or battles or dragons today. No. We're watching flour rise like fog, listening to wood creak and water hum. And we're going to spend a gentle day with someone whose work fed an entire village. If you find comfort in quiet stories like this, my friends, kindly give this video a soft little like, share it with your sleepy-eyed friends, and press that gentle subscribe button. It helps Zuzu bring more cozy tales from the past. Now, shall we begin? It always starts with the sound of water, not rushing like a river in springtime, but steady, rhythmic, dependable. A slow, watery murmur, like someone whispering stories beneath the earth. In a small English village around the 13th century, the millstream isn't just a stream, it's a living heartbeat. It powers the great wooden wheel, the millstones, the creaking beams above. But before any of that happens, before the first grain is ground, it sings to the miller through the open shutters. He wakes not with an alarm, but with this liquid lullaby. The thatch above his head rustles as a cool breeze slides in. The rooster might crow in the distance, but it's the familiar thump and splash of the wheel that tells him the day has begun. It's early. The sky is still pearl gray. No village children shouting. No carts rumbling down the dirt paths yet. Just birds, the scent of damp moss, and the swirl of river mist curling like steam from the ground. The miller's home is part of the mill itself. Tucked alongside the wheelhouse, its floorboards shivering with every churn. He's lived with that vibration all his life. It's like a lullaby he never quite left behind. He stretches slowly. His hands are rough from years of work, and his joints crack like dry wood. But there's no rush here. Everything in this story moves with the pace of water. As the miller rises, he doesn't light a lamp. There's no need. The pale morning light seeps through the cracks in the shutters, painting stripes on the wooden floor. The cottage smells of damp wood, stone, and the faintest hint of flour, a scent that never quite leaves these walls. Stone walls, stacked by hand generations ago, are cool to the touch. They're never quite dry. Not with the river so close, not with the fog always clinging to the ground like a shy animal. The beams above his head sag slightly under their age. A spiderweb glistens in the corner. The miller moves slowly, reverently, as if waking the room itself. He opens a wooden chest and takes out his clothes, woolen hose, a coarse linen shirt, and a tunic that smells faintly of smoke and flour. Each piece is stiff from wear, softened only where time has rubbed it smooth. He doesn't mind. Everything he owns tells a story. As he dresses, he can hear the gentle lapping of the stream just outside. He pauses by the shutter, opening it fully now. Outside, the mill's wheel turns in lazy circles. Ducks drift nearby, leaving tiny wakes. The air smells like earth and leaf and cold stone. It's not just a house, it's a part of the landscape. Built low, built slow, meant to last through seasons of rain and sun. And the scent, oh, the scent, makes you feel like you're wrapped in the land itself. Have you ever smelled a building and felt a story behind it? The miller lights a small beeswax candle with flint and steel. He doesn't need much light, just enough to see the edge of his sleeve as he pulls it on. Wool was never made to be comfortable, not in the beginning. It's itchy, heavy, smells a little like the sheep it came from, but it keeps in warmth like nothing else. And this morning is cold. His undershirt clings where it's still damp from yesterday's work. He rubs his arms and pulls his tunic tight around his waist. Boots next. One of them has a crack in the heel he keeps meaning to fix. But time is like flour. It slips through your fingers if you're not careful. He straps a small knife to his belt, not for fighting, for scraping the stones clean, cutting twine, and mending sacks. There's a woolen cap near the door. He tugs it down low and grabs the thick apron hanging from the wall peg. It's crusted with flour and water, stiff but faithful. Everything a medieval miller wears is for function. No show, no flair. No. But there's beauty in these objects, in the wear patterns, in the stains, in the way they smell of sweat and soil and grain. Before stepping out, he pats the small wooden carving nailed above the door, a saint's symbol meant to bless the day's work. Breakfast is humble, a heel of yesterday's bread, dark and tough, softened with a little water, a small wedge of goat cheese wrapped in waxed cloth. He peels it carefully, savoring the aroma, sharp and grassy. The bread was baked in the communal oven, along with half the village's loaves. He trades flour for his share, a quiet agreement with the baker's wife, who always saves him the crispiest ends. He eats on a wooden stool near the open door. No tablecloth, no pewter, just fingers and a small knife. A cup of small beer, barely alcoholic, sits beside him. It's safer than water and fills the belly. He sips slowly. The bread crunches, the cheese crumbles. Goat cheese isn't a delicacy, it's a necessity. Goats are hardy, easier to keep than cows, and their milk turns fast. A day without cheese means a day wasted. He eats without hurry. There's flour in his fingernails, and he doesn't care. There's time yet. The sun is only just peeking through the trees. The wheel is turning slowly, still stretching its joints after sleep. Before leaving the cottage, the miller kneels by the hearth. Yesterday's ashes lie still and cold, but beneath them, just maybe, a red ember glows faintly. He pokes gently with a stick. There it is, a tiny eye of warmth, still alive, still waiting. With practiced hands, he lays dried moss and kindling, blowing softly. The ember responds, crackling just a little. A breath, another, a curl of smoke, and then a flame. He smiles. It's not much, but it's enough. He adds a few thicker sticks and lets it burn. He doesn't need heat now, but he will later. The warmth feels good on his face. It smells of old wood and quiet mornings. There's a rhythm to this, like tending to a sleeping child. Careful, quiet, respectful. A medieval hearth isn't just for cooking, it's the center of the home, a place of life, warmth, and light. The flame is a companion, a silent one. And as he rises, brushing ash from his knees, he knows the wheel is turning now. It's time to begin the work of the day. Now this part, friends, this is where the magic happens. The miller steps outside into the soft dawn light. The path to the mill is damp, still holding the night's dew. It smells like river grass and cold stone. He walks slowly because the day is long and nothing here needs to be rushed. The mill building looms like a sleeping animal. Built low, its walls are thick with moss and the memories of seasons past. He opens the creaking door and steps inside. It's dark at first, and then his eyes adjust. There they are, the great wooden gears, wide-toothed, carefully carved, coated in a thin film of dust and flour. They sit like patient beasts, waiting for their turn. Iron pins hold them together, some rusting, some polished by use. They don't move yet. They won't until he tells them to. He walks the length of the room, trailing his hand along the main drive shaft. It's warm from yesterday's work. He listens. That's what millers do best. They don't just fix, they listen. A groan here, a whine there, and they know where the trouble lies. Up in the corner, a leather belt hangs slack. Tomorrow he'll oil it. But for now, everything looks good. Stillness has its own language, and this morning, the mill is whispering, I'm ready. Around back of the mill, the waterwheel turns. Slow, gentle, steady. The miller crouches near the stream's edge. His boots sink slightly in the muddy bank. He leans over with a wooden hook, one he carved himself long ago. and begins tugging away strands of moss that cling to the wheel like sleeping vines. The moss isn't bad, but left too long, it will slow the turn. And the wheel? She needs to spin with grace, not struggle. He finds a small pile of silt caked against the lower paddles. He scrapes it off slowly, letting the bits fall back into the stream. The water is cold and his sleeves get wet, but he doesn't flinch. This is just part of the dance. The mill, the water, the wheel, they all have to speak to each other. The silt is just a whisper in the wrong language. Once clear, he leans back on his heels, watching the wheel catch the current more smoothly. It turns with a sigh now, not a groan. A good sound, a happy wheel. He wipes his hands on his apron and looks up. Mist curls above the stream. A bird dips low, scooping a fish from the shallows. Everything is slow, turning, alive. What's the quietest job you can think of? One where listening matters more than speaking? Inside the mill again now, where the stones sleep beneath wooden hoods. The miller pulls back the cover to check the great round grinding stones. 2 of them, one fixed and one turning, partners in labor. He kneels beside them and runs his hands along the grooves. These are called furrows, carved in spiral patterns to guide the grain. Over time, the grooves wear down, the stones smooth out, and if he doesn't notice soon enough, the flour clogs and burns. Or worse, the whole thing stops. He taps the surface lightly with a wooden mallet. The sound tells him everything. A full, deep thunk means strong stone. A hollow sound? That's a crack. Today the tone is good, but just to be sure, he takes a candle and holds it low, looking for hairline fractures. The candlelight dances across the stone's face like moonlight on a pond. All clear. In another week, he'll need to dress the stone, sharpen the furrows again. That's a slow job. Takes a full day, sometimes 2, but not today. Today they're ready to grind. He breathes out softly. Dust swirls in the air like tiny spirits. He doesn't speak. He just listens to the old stones, who speak only in silence and surface. Now that the stones are ready, he opens the sluice gate outside. A soft gush. The water rushes in, and inside the mill, everything stirs. The gears shudder. The wheel groans. The shaft begins to turn, slowly at first, and then with rhythm. Creak, click, The whole building vibrates like a wooden drum. Every part has a song. The miller closes his eyes and listens. He knows the creak of healthy beams, the clatter of pins in place, the rattle of a loose bolt, if one happens. But today, it's all just right. He walks slowly through the mill as the noise builds, not loud but constant, like a river murmuring in a different language. The floorboards tremble under his boots. The flour sifter ticks quietly, like a heartbeat. To most, it's just noise, but to the miller, it's music, ancient music. He picks up a tiny feather from the floor, probably from a bird who slipped inside last night, and tucks it into his apron. Every day offers a little gift. He sits down on a stool and just listens for a moment. The rhythm of the wheel, the hush of grain, the creak of old wood waking up to work. At the back of the mill hangs a wall of simple tools: hooks, chisels, brushes, sacks, ropes, a long-handled grain paddle. Nothing fancy, nothing made to impress, but every item here has been with the miller longer than most of the village children. He takes down a curved iron hook and checks its edge. This is for turning sacks, lifting lids, even smoothing flour into bins. Next, a brush made from bundled straw. He sweeps a little flour dust from the chute. It sticks to everything. It's a stubborn, ghostly guest. In one corner, a tiny knife rests beside a sharpened stone, for cutting twine and patching bags. The handle is worn smooth by his thumb. It's shaped perfectly to him, like a key in a familiar lock. He murmurs to himself as he works. Not words, really, just sounds, like a lullaby for the mill. He oils a hinge, tightens a peg, straightens a wooden cover with a wedge of bark. There's no grand ceremony here, just slow, steady care. The miller doesn't command the mill, he partners with it. It gives him its power, he gives it his time. Would you rather work with tools and wood, or with words and books? Now this part, my dear time travelers, is like preparing for a slow feast. But not one you eat with your mouth. It's a feast of grain, of patience, of heavy sacks and quiet arrangements. Inside the mill's lower storeroom, the burlap sacks sit in a neat little pile, not stacked high like you might imagine in a modern warehouse. Oh no. These rest close to the ground, safe from damp and nestled like old sleeping animals in a barn. Each sack is different. Some patched at the seams, some marked with charcoal runes or the initials of the family that brought them. There's barley in a lumpy one at the back, oats in another with a green-tinted corner from rain. A few carry wheat, golden, slightly dusty, and smelling of last summer's wind. The miller kneels beside them, fingers tracing the weave of each bag. He knows their owners by touch alone. The baker's wife from up the hill, her sacks always double-stitched. Young Thomas from the edge of the forest, his grain is wild and coarse. He gathers it with his father. He doesn't open them all at once. That would mix the types, and that wouldn't do. No, each grain has its own needs. Each family has their own order, and the tally stick by the door will remind him whose turn is next. The sacks seem to breathe as he shifts them gently into place. Now comes my favorite part, touching the grain. The miller opens a narrow sack and lets the barley trickle through his fingers. It makes a soft hush, like a whisper from the field. Barley is plump and round, with a dull sheen that catches candlelight. Next he opens an oat sack. Oats are shyer, smaller, flatter, dustier. They smell faintly green, like crushed grass and cool mornings. These will need less grinding, but more care to keep from clogging the stone grooves. Wheat, though. Wheat is proud, golden, tall, stiff in the hand, with a clean aroma that speaks of sun-dried plains. Wheat flour is whiter, softer, and more prized by those who can afford it. He pinches a handful and lets it fall slowly. The grain sings as it drops. Little metallic clinks against the wooden bin. He doesn't need scales. He weighs by feel. How much fits in 2 hands? How much in 1 sack? Years of touch and texture have trained him better than numbers. The grain is more than food, it's memory. Each kernel holds a season, a storm, a sunbeam. Do you ever run your hands over something and suddenly remember a place you thought you'd forgotten? Every village has its quiet codes, and this one? It's carved into a stick. The miller reaches for the tally stick, an old, split piece of ashwood, smooth from years of handling. Each family has a notch, some deep, some angled, some tiny like a scratch. He holds the stick to the light and runs his thumb along it. This mark? The Coopers. That one? Widow Elsha's. Each cut tells a story, not just of quantity, but of trust. When a villager brings grain, the stick gets a mark. When they collect their flour, the matchstick is reunited and checked. It's old-fashioned, but it works. No one here reads. Not many even write. But they remember, and wood doesn't lie. Today he'll grind for 3 households. He adds a new notch, very carefully. Not too deep, not too light. Just enough that the stick can carry the weight of one more promise. Sometimes he looks at the stick and remembers winters past, when the notches were fewer and the sacks were lighter. And then he feels grateful. For full bins, for heavy sacks, and for the trust the village still places in him. Before the grain meets the stone, it must be cleaned. Not with machines, but with hands and patience. The miller sits on a low stool and scoops a bowl of barley into a shallow tray. He tilts the tray gently, letting the grain roll from side to side. As it moves, he watches for things that don't belong. Tiny stones, bits of husk, the occasional insect shell. He picks them out one by one, flicking them into a pile that will be tossed far from the mill later. This part of the job is meditative. The tray shifts, the grain whispers. His fingers move like they're telling secrets to the seeds. Some days, he finds little surprises, like a smooth pebble that looks like an egg, or a husk shaped like a heart. He saves them on a shelf near the door, little trophies from the quietest victories. Sifting takes time. But rushed flour is bad flour, and if a stone gets caught in the millstone, it can crack the groove or spoil the entire batch. So he takes his time. In this moment, it's just grain, wood, and hands. Everything is ready now. The sacks are opened, the stones are clean, the water flows. But before he pulls the lever, the miller pauses. He stands quietly by the stone chute and lowers his head. No words, just a breath, a moment, a silent prayer. Not to any one saint, but to all the things that keep this little world turning. He thanks the stream for its strength, the trees for the tools, the grain for its journey. There's a small wooden carving tucked on a shelf nearby, Saint Honoratus, patron of bakers and millers. He's chipped, and his paint is faded. But his smile is still there, faint as flour dust. The miller touches the carving lightly, then rests his palm on the chute. It's a quiet ceremony, not for show, not for others, just for the mill and the wheel and the flour to come. Then he lifts the first sack and begins to pour. The stream begins to sing. The stone turns once again. Would you have liked to live in a world where work began with a pause, not a push? Shh! Can you hear it? There's a hush in the air just before the mill wakes fully. The sun is a little higher now, touching the tops of the trees, and the stream waits, eager but held back. The miller steps outside once more, down a path lined with wet moss and tiny hoof prints. He reaches the sluice gate, a wooden hatch fixed to the stream's side, keeping the water dammed. He grips the lever. It creaks as he pushes, the wood straining just a little from damp. Then, slowly, gently, the water flows. It surges forward, cold and steady, rushing toward the wheel with purpose. The paddles catch it one by one, and the wheel groans, turns, and begins its slow, majestic spin. Back inside, everything answers the call. Gears turn, belts tighten, shafts begin to hum. It's like a great wooden beast has woken, yawning after sleep. The mill doesn't roar, it whispers, and the whisper says, "Let's begin." Now that the wheel is moving, it's time to feed the heart of the mill. The miller climbs a small ladder to the hopper, a wooden funnel that holds the grain just above the millstones. With practiced care, he pours in a sack of wheat. The grains slide in a soft rush like sand down a beach dune. At the bottom of the hopper is a little wooden rod, called a damsel. It spins when the stone turns, tapping, tapping, tapping the grain into the center of the stones. The sound is gentle, a soft rhythm like a quiet drumbeat in a dream. As the stones turn, the grain vanishes between them. Two massive circles, one stationary, one slowly rotating, press each seed into dust. You don't see it crushed. You don't hear any crack. It just disappears. And out from the side, a thin stream of flour begins to trickle. It's pale, warmer than white, like the color of linen hung to dry in sunlight. The miller crouches to watch. Still good, not too fine, not too coarse. He rubs a pinch between his fingers, feeling for grit. Perfect. Some people say the stones eat the grain, but Zuzu thinks it's more like they transform it. Quiet alchemy done in wood and stone. Below the millstones, the flour doesn't fall into barrels or sacks right away. Nope. It first rains onto a piece of stretched cloth. A simple linen sheet tied loosely between two wooden frames catches the falling flour like snow landing on a frozen pond. It lands in silence, a soft patter, a gathering drift. The cloth sags gently under the weight, just enough to hold, not enough to spill. The miller comes over and brushes the surface lightly with the back of his hand. The flour is still warm from the friction of the stone. It smells earthy, like baked sunlight. Not bread yet, but almost. Over time, he'll gather it into sacks. But for now, he watches it fall. Each family's flour must be kept separate. There's a rhythm to it. Pour the grain, wait Watch the flour, clear the chute, pour again. He hums softly, a tune his mother used to sing, back when she helped sift and pack. The tune floats up with the dust, both suspended in the morning light. After just an hour of grinding, everything is coated. The miller runs a hand through his hair and feels the grit there. Flour dust clinging to his cap, settling into the folds of his sleeves, creeping beneath the collar of his tunic. It floats in the air like lazy smoke, drifting until it lands. Even the rafters wear a thin coat. The tools, the shelves. A mouse hole in the corner now looks like a doorway made of chalk. But he doesn't mind. It's the mark of the work. He wipes his face with a cloth that's already dusty, then chuckles softly at the futility of it. Sometimes the baker will joke that you can smell a miller before you see him. And it's true. The scent is unmistakable. Warm grain, wood smoke, a faint sharpness like cracked stone. He keeps a small bucket of water near the hearth, dips his hands, wipes slowly. The water clouds immediately. He doesn't wash it all away. Some dust stays. It always does. By midday, the sound of the mill is steady, deep, rhythmic, thoughtful. The wheel outside still turns, but slower now. The stream has thinned slightly with the sun rising overhead. The gears clack softly. The stone hums like a distant drum. The whole building sways gently, not wildly, not dangerously, just enough to feel like it's breathing. The miller knows the sound. He's heard it since boyhood. He knows when the stone is too dry or when the gear teeth bite too hard. But today, it's a lullaby. He sits by the open window, elbows on his knees, listening. Children laugh in the distance. A bird sings from the alder tree. Inside, the mill speaks its own language. Creak, hum, sigh. He closes his eyes and lets the sound wash over him. If you could fall asleep to any sound from the past, what would it be? It's warm outside now, the sun perched high above the trees. But the cottage? Oh, the cottage remains cool, like a clay cup of river water. The miller ducks his head under the low doorway beam. He's hit it before, and once was enough. The floor is packed earth, swept smooth. There's no rush inside. The noise of the mill fades into a soft hum through the walls, like a cat purring in another room. His wife has left the shutters open. The light filters through linen curtains, casting slow waves on the table. He sets his sack of fresh flour by the hearth. The scent mingles with something better, onions and herbs, simmering low in a clay pot over coals. A midday meal is coming, and he smiles quietly. Everything here is still. A bundle of drying mint hangs in the corner. A broom leans against the stone oven, and on the windowsill a sprig of elderflower floats in a clay bowl of water. This little house listens too. It holds warmth in the walls and silence in the seams. There's a small basin near the hearth, hand-carved from a single block of stone, smooth on the inside, chipped at the rim. The miller pours in water from a clay jug. It splashes with a hollow sound, cool and clear. He dips his hands, letting the flour dissolve slowly off his skin. Not scrubbing, just soaking. The water turns milky in seconds. Then he splashes some on his face, cupping it first like he always does. There's a towel hanging by the stove, coarse, woven by his sister 2 summers ago. He dries off slowly, eyes half closed. Water in the middle of a workday. It's like a breath you didn't know you needed. The miller looks out the window. A bee dances past. His wife hums a tune nearby. He dips the towel in the water again and hangs it over the door to dry. Would you rather have a cup of warm tea or a cool basin of water after a long task? Ah, friends, now comes the best part of the day, not because of hunger, but because of calm. The miller sits at the table, rough-hewn wood with legs that wobble slightly on one side. His wife brings over a shallow bowl. Pottage, a stew of barley, onions, nettle, maybe a little leftover bacon if it's been a good week. Beside it, a round of coarse bread, fresh, still warm, with a cracked crust and steam inside. Not fancy, but real. honest. They eat slowly. Wooden spoons scrape the bowl in gentle rhythm. There's no rush, no chatter. Only the fire popping softly and the faint creak of wood settling in the sun. The cottage fills with scent and stillness. A dog lies near the hearth, tail flicking once. A child outside laughs, running past the window. They don't speak much, but when they do, it's about the little things. A fox seen in the woods, a cracked door hinge, a neighbor's cow gone missing. Once the bowls are clean, licked by hand, wiped with crust, rinsed in rainwater, the miller rises slowly. There are little chores now, small ones. No rush. He checks the latch on the shutter, loose again. He wedges a sliver of wood beneath it. Next, he lifts the clay jar of flour and tips some into a linen sack for a neighbor. He ties it off with a bit of twine and sets it near the door. His wife moves quietly behind him, sweeping the floor with a broom made from birch twigs. The bristles whisper across the packed earth. On the hearth, she turns the bread. It will bake a little more in the fading coals. The dog scratches at a flea and then falls back asleep. All is still. Even the walls seem to listen. Even the beams in the roof hold their breath, waiting for the afternoon sun to tilt. After all the tasks, after the meal, after the flour has been packed and the dog has dozed off again, comes rest. Not sleep, just rest. The miller steps outside. The mill still hums, but now in a low, dreamy voice. The wheel turns, and the stream sings beneath it. He sits on a smooth stone near the water's edge. The grass bends gently in the breeze. He leans back, arms behind him, eyes half closed. Above, a cloud floats by slowly. A bird circles overhead. Nothing moves fast here. This is not a world of noise and alarm. It's a world of breath, of rhythm, of slow things done well. And as the wind carries the smell of flour and herbs and stone, he thinks, not of tomorrow's work, but of how lucky it is to pause. Would you take a moment each day to do nothing at all? Just once, maybe? In the quiet lull of the early afternoon, while the sun hangs just slightly past its peak, there comes a change in the air, a soft rhythm of footsteps along the dusty lane. A wheel creaks, a rope swings. Birds hush for a moment. The villagers are coming. Not all at once, mind you, just one at a time. First, old Garin, with a squeaky cart and a limp from the last frost. He whistles as he walks, off-key but cheerful. Then comes Marta, her apron heavy with fresh eggs she plans to trade along the way. Each step, each turn of a wheel is like a drum roll announcing the arrival of flour day. And the mill listens. The old wooden structure seems to straighten slightly, proud to serve again. The miller, still by the stream, stands and dusts off his knees. He nods gently, already knowing whose turn it is from the notch carved yesterday. The mill is not a place of commerce alone, it is a place of return. Inside the mill, the flour has settled overnight into soft heaps, covered with cloth, cool to the touch, light as wind-blown snow. The miller uncovers the stack and begins to fill the sacks, one at a time. He doesn't need scales, he knows by feel, by weight in the arms and shape in the hand. He lifts the flour with a carved wooden scoop, pours it slowly into linen sacks. The cloth darkens slightly as it takes on the fine dust. Each sack is folded at the top, tied with twine. Marta leans against the doorframe, watching. Her fingers tap the wood softly. Garin hums behind her. They don't speak yet. They know the rhythm. They've seen it since they were small. Finally, the miller turns and sets the finished sack at Marta's feet. She thanks him with a smile that shows more in the eyes than in words. Not flour alone, but trust, packed into every bag. Once the flour is packed and the hands are dusted, the real reason for the visit begins. Talk. They sit just outside the mill, under the bent old tree whose branches dip low enough to touch. A bench that was once a wagon plank now serves as a resting place. Marta mentions a fox spotted near the chicken coops. Garin grumbles about the frostbitten cabbages. The miller listens, nods, adds a story about a bird that keeps nesting in the eaves. They share bread too, the end of a loaf, some salted cheese, a bit of dried apple. Nothing large, but always shared. It isn't just about updates, it's about presence, community, the quiet proof that life continues. Have you ever had a place where people gather just to be near each other, not because they must, but because they always have? Now comes the part with no coin, at least not often. The villagers don't usually pay with silver. They bring goods, and the miller prefers it this way. Marta offers 2 eggs, still warm. Garin leaves a carved spoon, ash wood, good balance. Someone else has left a bundle of firewood tied with twine just outside the door. A goose feather, a tanned strip of leather, a sprig of rosemary. These are worth more than gold here, because they mean something. The miller keeps a shelf just for gifts. Some he uses, some he saves, and every single one has a story. He gives nothing in return but flour. But it's the kind of giving where both leave with more than they came. At last, the sacks are tied. The sun has shifted again. Time to go. Garin hoists his flour onto his cart with a grunt. Marta balances hers on her hip, steps steady and sure. They say goodbye with few words, just nods, a touch on the arm, a smile. The path away from the mill is dappled in shadow now. Leaves wave overhead. Wheels creak once more. Footsteps slowly fade. The mill stands quiet again, but not alone. It has done its work. It has welcomed its people. And the flour inside those sacks will rise soon into something warm, something shared. Sometimes the miller watches them until they vanish from view. Then he turns to sweep the floor, slowly, gently, still smiling. The day, like dough left to rise, has swelled to fullness and now begins to sink into its evening shape. The sky outside the mill has softened to lavender, touched with streaks of quiet amber. The birds no longer sing, only call in soft 2s and 3s. The mill, still and hushed, breathes in this light. Inside, the last shafts of golden sun stretch long across the wooden beams. Dust dances like tiny spirits, rising and falling in the air. The scent of flour is heavier now, warm and sweet. It clings to everything, the floor, the walls, even the miller's sleeves. It is a scent that signals work has been done and done well. The miller walks slowly through the space, his boots making a soft shuffle on the flour-dusted floor. There is no more rushing. The grain is ground. The sacks are sealed. This is a time for tending, not producing. He opens a small side hatch, letting in the last warmth of the day. Outside, frogs begin their gentle chorus, a song of the earth settling in for night. He doesn't speak. There's no need. The mill understands this rhythm as deeply as he does. After all these years, the two are one. Wood and man, stone and breath. The grindstone stands at the center of the mill's heart. It has spun through seasons, wars, births, and storms. It has a memory, carved not in thoughts but in grooves. The miller kneels beside it now like a priest before an altar. He places a lantern nearby, the flame steady and small. He touches the stone with reverence, not hurriedly, but with patience. His fingers follow the lines, the shallow grooves carved in a spiral to guide the grain as it passes between the twin stones. These furrows must remain just so, not too sharp, not too smooth. Too much wear, and the flour will clump or scatter unevenly. Too deep, and it will crush rather than mill. He takes out his chisel and holds it thoughtfully. He doesn't strike immediately. First he listens. He listens to the silence of the stone, to the weight it holds from the day's work. Then, gently, he taps. Just once. The sound rings low and solid. Not correction, only maintenance. A reminder to the stone, we are still working. He has learned this not from books, but from his grandfather, and his grandfather learned from his own. This knowledge is passed hand to hand, dust to dust. You must feel it. You must smell when the stone is hot or hear when the grinding hums wrong. It's a language of quiet. Would you find peace in such a task, a role that asks nothing new but attention, rhythm, and care? The grindstone is not the only soul in the mill. Around it hums the gearwork. Teeth and pins and wooden cogs, ropes thick with use, pulleys that whisper overhead. It is a living machine, and the miller tends to it like one might care for a great animal after a long run. He climbs the narrow stairs to the upper platform. The wood creaks under his weight. Above, the large cogwheel waits, slightly warm from the day's labor. He brings out a soft bristled brush and begins to clean. Dust falls in small puffs. He brushes between each wooden tooth, clearing the flour and husks. The rhythm is soothing, back and forth, up and down. When the brush catches a stubborn bit, he switches to a cloth, dampened with warm water and a touch of ash soap. The scent is sharp but not unpleasant. Then comes the oil, rendered animal fat, held in a small clay pot. He dips a finger in and rubs it onto each pivot, hinge, and axle. The gears will turn smoother tomorrow, less grind, less wear. Below, he inspects the chute where flour pours through into the sacks. He scrapes away the caked dust with a thin wooden paddle. This he sweeps into a bowl to take home. Chickens will be glad for it. No sound but the brush, the occasional creak, and the quiet sigh of the building settling into night. Work makes messes, even quiet, careful work. And now comes the most grounding task of all, sweeping. The miller retrieves the broom from its corner. Its bristles are rough birch, bound with waxed twine. He begins in the farthest corner, moving slow and steady, pulling the flour toward the center in low arcs. The floor tells stories. A scatter of chaff here, a heel print in the dust there, a feather, possibly from a bird who wandered in last week and couldn't find the window. As he sweeps, he hums softly. Not a song anyone would know, just a tune born of habit and the turning of seasons. Outside, the crickets keep rhythm. He checks the grain sacks next. They stand like sentinels in the corner, tied tight and labeled with small bits of chalk. One leans slightly. He nudges it upright. Another has a fraying edge. He rewinds the twine and knots it twice. Near the door, a small pouch of mint is crushed and fresh. It keeps mice away better than traps, he says, and kinder too. The room grows darker, the sweeping grows slower, almost done. Everything has been touched, cleaned, tucked away. The air is cooler now, brushed with evening's chill. The miller looks around one last time. He lowers the side hatch, fastens the bolt with a wooden peg. The door groans slightly on its hinges. He makes a note to oil it tomorrow. He pauses by the grindstone, placing one hand on its side. A thank you, silent and sincere. Then he moves to the front and latches the main doors. A rope is looped through 2 iron rings, drawn tight. Inside, the mill is now closed, resting in its own breath. Outside, the stars are beginning their gentle bloom. The moon is still low, but the grass already gleams with its touch. The waterwheel turns lazily in the stream, a lullaby made of creaks and splash. He stands for a moment, just listening. No voices, no tasks, only night. And then, with a small sigh, he begins his walk home. Tomorrow will begin again. But for now, even the mill must sleep. The miller's boots press softly into the earth as he steps beyond the threshold of the mill. The door shuts behind him with a gentle thud, and just like that, the hum of work gives way to the hush of night. There is a quiet kind of joy in this moment, the kind that settles into the chest and breathes deeply. The day is finished. The walk home begins. The air carries a cool, damp scent, a mixture of crushed grass, river mist, and the faint smoke of distant hearths. The sounds have changed now. No more grinding stone or creaking gears. Instead, the soft drone of frogs, the brush of wind through young wheat. A distant owl calls, steady and low. He tugs his wool cloak tighter around his shoulders. It smells of lanolin and ash and old days. His cap is low over his brow. Every step down the path feels like a slow unwinding, a loosening of the rope that held the rhythm of the day so tightly. The path ahead is narrow and rutted, but familiar, lit only by the moon and a lantern swaying from the crook of his elbow. The flame dances on the sides of trees and stones. flickering glimpses of the world at rest. Every walk home is the same, and yet never is. The path meanders gently, touching the edges of familiar things. An old stump shaped like a stool, a mossy boulder that the children call the sleeping bear, a crooked gate tied with twine that creaks like an old fiddle when the wind hits just right. He touches each with his eyes, sometimes his fingers. These things anchor him to the land. They have not moved in decades, and neither has the love he feels for them. There is the small stone well where he once dropped a wooden ring and swore he saw it land on the bottom like a coin in a fountain. There is the patch of wild thyme, faintly scented even now, brushing his boots with its feathery leaves. He knows where the roots rise beneath the path and where the puddles last longest after rain. His lantern winks off each spot, marking time without counting it. Have you ever walked the same way so many times that the trees start to feel like neighbors? Soon, the tops of roofs appear in silhouette against the deep blue sky. Thatched and low, the village sleeps under layers of stillness. The miller slows his steps, not wanting to disturb even the air. Candlelight flickers behind two shutters, likely old Magda, who likes to read aloud to her cat. A faint puff of smoke curls from the chimney of the brewer's cottage, a fire banked, not burning. All else is dark. The cobbled path here is uneven. The miller walks it with care. He passes the well, bucket tied and waiting. He sees the carved wooden sign above the chapel's door, swinging slightly even with no breeze. A holy hush. No dogs bark. They know him. Even the geese in the pen beside the baker's house lift their heads, see his shape, then settle once more. A village at night is like a great breath held. It remembers everything but asks nothing. It simply waits for the sun. Beyond the village, just before the last hill home, a narrow stream gurgles through a grove of alder and willow. The miller always stops here, always. He crouches by the bank, sets his lantern down, and dips his fingers into the cold water. It shocks, then soothes. The stream sings a secret song, one you can only hear when no one else is listening. There are fish here, though small and quick. He doesn't try to catch them. He simply watches the flicker of their movement, like silver shadows against the stone bed. Above, fireflies blink in slow rhythm. He sits for a moment on the damp log that rests beside the water. His legs stretch out. The stars above begin to thicken. No torchlight reaches here. It is a place apart, a place where the day lets go. At last, he crests the final hill, and there it is, his cottage, tucked against a low hedge, with smoke rising from the chimney and the roof patched with moss. The door is slightly ajar, left open by habit or hope. He steps inside and sets the lantern on the table. The warmth hits him instantly. A small fire glows in the hearth, low and red. A clay pot of broth sits near the edge, still warm. He removes his boots, placing them just so, and hangs his cloak by the peg. He pours water into a basin, washes his hands, then lights a beeswax candle. Its scent is faintly sweet. He doesn't speak. There's no one to speak to. But the silence here is kind. He sits at the table with a hunk of bread and a bowl of broth. Slowly he eats, one spoonful at a time. Then he wipes the table, stirs the fire, and retires to his cot tucked near the wall. The linen is rough, the blanket wool. It is enough. The mill sleeps. The village sleeps. And now, so does he. The fire has burned low to embers, red and breathing. It casts gentle shadows that sway across the walls like the memory of movement. The room, once active with the shuffle of boots and clink of spoon on bowl, now rests. Every object feels content where it lies. The broom, the cloak, the chipped mug on the sill, all of them softened by the quiet. The miller lies on his cot, wool blanket tucked up to his chest. One hand rests across his belly. His breath is slow, steady. He does not speak. The fire speaks for him now. There is something sacred about a home at midnight. No expectation, no interruption. The mice in the thatch keep their secrets. The wind hums at the window just once. The world outside is black velvet. Inside is warmth. He does not dream yet. First, his mind walks through the day. He recalls the feel of the grindstone under his fingers, the creak of the rope-pulled gear, the dust on his sleeves. These memories flicker like sparks rising from the hearth. Then they fade. His eyes closed, he slips into the first dream. The mill returns, but it is no longer solid. It sways like a leaf in water. The grindstone spins without sound. The flour floats through the air, becoming stars. He sees the waterwheel, but now it is enormous, as tall as a hill. It turns slowly, as if moved by time itself. Each paddle dips not into water, but into the sky, sending ripples of cloud in every direction. He walks along the wheel, barefoot. The wood is soft, like bark. Beneath him, the earth hums. The rhythm of the wheel soothes him even in sleep, round and round, never hurried, never late. Sometimes, in dreams, the mill speaks, not in words, but in feelings. A hum of belonging, a sense of purpose. Do you ever dream of a place that feels more like home than home itself? The dream shifts, a knock at the cottage door. He opens it, and there stands his grandfather, coat buttoned, hair neat, eyes clear. Behind him, his mother hums as she folds laundry. A childhood friend waves from the footpath. They do not speak. They do not need to. The dream miller understands. This is a remembering, not a visit, a rehearsal of comfort. They sit around the fire that is no longer ash, but glowing again. His grandfather runs his hand along the table grain. His mother plucks a few notes on a lyre that no longer exists. These people who once shaped him now shape his rest. They linger long enough to remind him that he is not made of just the day's work, but of old songs, warm bread, and laughter that echoes even now. He wakes a little, turns on his side, then drifts back. In the quietest part of the night, a dream comes that is neither joy nor sorrow. The miller stands at a long table. On one end, sacks of grain. On the other, small pebbles, a scale in the center. For each kindness given, a pebble is added. For each harsh word, a bit of grain. He watches the scale dip gently, then rise again. It is not judgment, it is reflection, a soft reminder that days are not measured in hours, but in intentions. He sees the face of the widow he helped cross the road, a boy whose spilled flour he swept without complaint. He remembers, too, a grumble he gave his neighbor when short of sleep. All things are counted. Then the dream fades, and with it, a sense of peace. The day, it says, was enough. Have you ever thought of your day in weights and balances? The last dream is only a sound, the slow drip of morning dew, a single bird call, the wheel beginning to stir, not yet turning. He does not open his eyes yet, but his body knows the light is returning. The fire has cooled completely. The shadows are no longer black, but blue. The wool blanket is warm, but the air has changed. The scent of ash is now joined by a hint of bread from somewhere far off. A neighbor, perhaps. He stretches, just a little. His joints answer with small clicks, the kind that mean he is alive, and so is the world. Outside, the stars have dimmed, but one lingers in the west, refusing to sleep. Just like Zuzu, waiting for the miller to rise again. The soft rustle of linen, the creak of old timber, and the call of a lark gently cooing outside the window. The miller stirs. He does not leap into the day. He unfolds into it. His feet find the floor, cool and dusty. The hearth is cold, though the ash still holds yesterday's warmth deep in its bones. He pours a bit of water from the clay jug, rubs his hands, and wipes sleep from his face. From the far side of the fields, a distant bell rings. A farm boy yells to a stubborn cow. A thatcher whistles as he climbs onto a rooftop. These sounds are soft, but layered, like a painting that reveals more the longer you look. The village is waking, and each soul plays its part. The miller folds his blanket, pats the top of the cot, and places his boots by the door. It is not rushing, it is rhythm. He sets a small pot on the trivet above the rekindled fire. Oats simmer slowly in water tinged with milk. Nearby, a square of coarse rye bread rests on a wooden plate. There is no rush. The porridge thickens as he stirs with the rhythm of a quiet song. The smell rises, nutty, warm, comforting. He spoons a bit into a bowl and adds a scrap of honeycomb saved from last summer. It melts into golden streaks. He eats beside the window, where the light is softest. Not for the view, but for the calm. He chews slowly, each bite grounding him to the moment. The birds outside are busier now. Wings flitting, feathers ruffling, calls echoing through the hedges. Have you ever eaten something so simple that it felt like a blessing? After breakfast, the miller sets to his chores. First, sweeping the floor with a bundle of twigs bound in linen cord, then emptying the ashes, checking the firewood pile. His movements are careful, not lazy, but unhurried. Outside, the garden waits. He steps into his worn clogs and opens the door. The morning mist clings to the hedges. Bees buzz low over thyme and sage. He lifts a watering jug and tilts it toward the small greens, spinach, onions, leeks. There's a joy in the quiet labor, a snail on the path, a spiderweb on the gate catching the sun just right. He picks a few herbs for later and wipes the dirt on his apron. Every corner of the home has a voice, the latch that sticks, the bucket that groans. He tends to them like friends. The path to the mill feels different in the morning. It stretches like a limb just awakened. The dew glistens on blades of grass. Small birds dart from branch to branch. The miller walks with his satchel bouncing gently at his hip. His hands brush wildflowers growing along the ditch. His boots leave shallow prints in the moist earth. The sky is broader now, light blue stretching like linen on a line. He passes the same landmarks, but they feel fresh again. The stump glistens, the moss is greener. The air holds promise. When the mill comes into view, the wheel is still. But not for long. The sound of the stream is louder here, a rush over stone, the song of movement. Soon the gears will groan awake. Inside the mill, it is cool and quiet. The light filters in from the high windows in shafts that dance with dust. The miller hangs his cloak, checks the grain bins, and feels the stone with his palm. It is smooth, solid, waiting. He primes the chute, fastens the gear straps, and gently nudges the water gate. Outside, the wheel groans, then turns, slow at first, then with ease. The grindstone begins its slow, circular hum. The belts tighten. The first handful of grain slides into place. Everything smells faintly of flour and damp wood. A swallow perches in the rafters. The work begins again. One more day. One more rhythm. Have you ever felt a tool in your hand that just fit, as though your body had always known how to use it? The first light hasn't yet crept over the horizon, but the miller is already moving. His hands find the straps and knots by habit. The wooden cart creaks as he shifts sacks of freshly milled flour into place. A bundle of herbs from his garden rests on top, tied with twine. One small wheel wobbles just slightly, as it always does. He checks the cloth covering each sack, brushing off a fleck of ash that must have fallen from the hearth. A small oil lantern swings gently from the handle, casting long shadows over the packed path. The air is chilled, and dew clings to everything: the wheel's spokes, the bark of the nearby trees, even his lashes. The quiet is almost sacred. He takes a deep breath, touches the side of the cart, and begins to roll it slowly toward the village. The village path is familiar, even in the half-light. The cart's wheels hum gently over worn earth. He passes small cottages, each dark but stirring. A dog stretches on a doorstep. A rooster lifts its head but doesn't yet crow. His cloak flaps gently as a breeze slips between the hedgerows. A fox watches from the bramble, then vanishes. Somewhere far off, a bell chimes softly, a church marking the early hour. The walk is long, but not tiring. It's a time to think, to listen. A blackbird calls, then quiets. The village comes into view slowly, rooftops rising like teeth from the valley mist. Smoke rises from one chimney, then another. Do you have a favorite sound from early mornings, one that tells you the world is waking with you? In the village square, the market begins to take shape. Tents and awnings flap softly as others arrive, the potter with his wrapped jugs, the cheesewife balancing a wheel on her hip, a boy with apples in a wicker basket. The miller nods greetings, his voice low and easy. He lays out his cloth, positions the sacks neatly, and unties the herb bundles. He sets out a small sign etched with chalk. Fresh ground flour, 2 pence the scoop. Each movement is practiced but never rushed. He shakes out a stool, places a small cloth over his knees, and waits with folded hands. Nearby, a man tunes a lute. 2 girls argue over a ribbon. A chicken escapes and is promptly caught again. The square fills, not with noise, but with warmth, a living tapestry of shared mourning. The morning flows gently. A baker buys a full sack, tucking it under one arm. A young woman asks about herbs for a stew, and the miller recommends sage for the bitterness. Coins clink gently into a small wooden bowl. Each customer lingers a moment, not rushed, but curious. An old man trades eggs for a handful of flour. A child stares at the grindstone hung beside the stall like a charm. Talk drifts over the stalls like smoke. Someone mentions rain. Another shares word of a distant cousin's wedding. The miller listens more than he speaks, nodding gently. Each interaction is a stitch in the fabric of the day, the kind that makes a village feel like a place, not just a name. By noon, the sun is high, the market begins to thin. Vendors wrap up their wares, baskets empty, coins heavy in pockets. The miller folds his cloth, stacks the remaining sacks, and ties the bundles with practiced ease. The stool squeaks as he picks it up. He shares a nod with the fishmonger, a wink with the cheesemaker. Silent thank yous. The walk home is quieter. The cart is lighter, but the day has weight, the kind that settles on shoulders like a wool cloak after rain. Not burdened, just full. Back at the cottage, he unpacks what's left. A few herbs, 2 coins, and the feeling of having contributed something useful. Have you ever ended a day with your hands tired and your heart satisfied? The air has changed. It carries birdsong more clearly now, and the breeze smells faintly of damp earth and new green. The snow has long since melted into the roots. The trees, once stark and silent, now bud with soft leaves. The miller stands in his doorway with a finger tucked under his chin. His garden stirs. A tangle of shoots from last year has found life again. The sage pushes through the loam. The thyme hums with bees. He kneels, pressing his hand into the soil. It crumbles warmly. In the village, doors open wider. Children race barefoot down the lanes. The market square grows busier. A girl skips by with a sprig of dandelion tucked behind her ear. A boy chases her, laughing. The waterwheel, too, turns easier in the spring. There's more flow, more song in the stream. Everything feels lighter, not because there is less to do, but because the doing feels shared with the season. Summer isn't rushed. It arrives like a song that has no beginning, just a gentle swell. The days lengthen, the flour is thicker, the bread denser. The mill hums from morning to late light. The miller works shirtless now, a cloth tied about his brow. Sweat rolls down his arms as he pours grain into the chute. Outside, the fields shimmer. Workers bend into the wheat, scythes moving in rhythm. From the window, the distant shouts and laughter of reapers ride the wind. At noon, the miller rests in the shade of a large oak. Bread, cheese, and berries are his meal. A jug of water rests at his side. A swallow builds a nest in the rafters, swooping gracefully from beam to beam. There is an ache in the bones, but it is the kind that comes with usefulness, like a wheel worn smooth from good turning. What does summer feel like to you when everything is full and slow? Leaves tumble like old thoughts. The trees let go without worry, and the village follows suit. Barrels line the fields, filled with apples, plums, and hard grains. The miller sharpens his tools, oils the gears. Autumn means readiness. His cloak returns to his shoulders. Mornings are cooler. When he walks to the mill, frost bites gently at his toes through his boots. People bring more to be ground now. There is urgency, but not panic. Just the understanding that rest follows work. The sacks are heavier. His hands, red and calloused, move without complaint. In the evenings, he lights a lantern earlier. Shadows stretch longer across the mill floor. Sometimes he hums old songs while turning the last scoops of flour. Songs that sound like wood smoke and cider. Winter does not knock. It simply arrives, like silence entering a room. The stream slows. Ice edges the mill pond. The wheel turns only when asked. Inside, the miller keeps the hearth fed. He sits beside it, sewing a tear in his cloak. His dog, old, one ear drooping, sleeps by the fire. There is less milling now. Just a few villagers come through the snow. They bring dried herbs and small sacks, asking for flour to last them till thaw. The days are short. He wakes in the dark, eats stew, reads worn pages by candlelight. He listens to the wind speak through cracks in the shutters. Winter does not rush him. It reminds him to breathe, to wait, to rest. No matter the season, the wheel is there. Sometimes spinning, sometimes paused, but always present, like breath. The miller knows it better than anything. The sound it makes when it's too dry, the creak when it's content, the shift when something unseen changes. He listens to it the way a sailor reads the sea. He grows older and the mill wears with him. A groove in the wood from his hand, a notch in the door from the cart, memories in grain dust. Seasons turn, leaves fall, streams freeze and melt again, and the flour continues to sift like fine snow into the world. And now, my sleepy friends, the day with the miller draws to a close. Just like the seasons that circle round and round, we've wandered through his quiet, steady world together. A world of turning wheels, soft footsteps, and warm bread. Zuzu the monkey, thanks you for drifting through time with me. If this little journey brought a smile to your night or helped your thoughts quiet down, then maybe you'd like to join me again sometime. Please gently press the like button, share this video with another sleepy traveler, and if your heart says yes, subscribe to Zuzu's Time Travel for more stories that soothe and slow the mind. Until next time, may your dreams be warm and your days turn gently. Good night from the mill.